When you look at the southern sky, your eyes lie to you. You see a bright point of light, the third brightest in the heavens, sitting right next to the Southern Cross. It feels like you could reach out and touch it, like a porch light on a house just across the street. But this is a deception of cosmic proportions. That single point of light is actually a gravity well of 3 stars, locked in an amazing gravitational dance, and they are so distant that the light hitting your retina left them before the last presidential election. It feels like we are in a cage of distance so vast that the human mind cannot truly comprehend the bars. This is the story of how we break that cage. We will explore 3 ways to cross the Great Divide. We will look at the slow colonization vessel that takes centuries, the fusion-powered sprinter that takes decades, and the warp drive that takes days, bending reality itself. When we finally reach Alpha Centauri using the fastest method possible, we'll also talk about the survival, colonization, and terraforming of Proxima b. If you are ready to embark on the most fascinating journey ever, hit that like button and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, if you could leave Earth tomorrow for a new world, but never return, would you go? Now settle in, relax, and let the journey begin. To understand where we are going, you must first feel the weight of the silence between us. Space is not just empty, it is wide. The distance to Alpha Centauri is usually written as 4.3 light-years. It sounds small, it sounds like a walk to the corner store, but let us translate that into something you can touch. Imagine the sun is a grapefruit sitting on the frantic streets of New York City. Earth is a grain of sand orbiting just a few meters away. On this scale, where is Alpha Centauri? Is it in Central Park? Is it across the river in New Jersey? No. If the sun is a grapefruit in New York, Alpha Centauri is another grapefruit in Los Angeles. Between them is nothing but 3,000 miles of empty, howling wind. No gas stations, no landmarks, just the void. And in this analogy, our fastest rockets are microscopic bacteria crawling across the continent, moving mere inches a year. This is the Gulf of Night. It is a desert so vast that it swallows our fastest machines. We launched the Voyager probes in the 1970s. They are the fastest objects ever made by human hands, screaming away from us at 38,000 miles per hour. That is fast enough to cross the Atlantic Ocean in minutes. But on the scale of the stars, Voyager is motionless. If Voyager were heading towards Alpha Centauri, which it is not, it would take 75,000 years to bridge the gap. That is longer than the entire history of human civilization. It is longer than the time since we invented language. We cannot wait that long. The human lifespan is a flicker of a candle against the hurricane of deep time. If we want to reach the stars, we have to cheat. We have to build machines that defy the intuitive laws of motion. We have to harness fires that burn hotter than the surface of the sun, or unfurl sails of gold to catch the wind of lasers, or perhaps simply bend the road itself. But before we can run, we must learn to crawl. Our first method of travel does not require new physics. It requires something far harder to build. It requires patience. It requires a ship that is not just a vehicle, but a world of its own. A ship designed to cross the dark for 400 years. The destination is not a single point of light. When we finally cross that gulf, we are not arriving at a lonely outpost. We are entering a dynasty. The Alpha Centauri system is a trinity of stars, a complex gravity well where 3 suns fight for dominance in the dark. It is a chaotic, beautiful mess of orbital mechanics. First, there is Alpha Centauri A. This is the patriarch. It is a yellow star, almost identical to our own sun. It has the same warmth, the same mass, the same golden light. If you were standing on a planet orbiting this star, the day would feel like home. The grass would grow green, the sky would be blue. It is a mirror of the solar system we left behind, a twin separated at birth. Dancing with it is Alpha Centauri b. This is the slightly smaller, cooler companion. It glows with an orange hue, like a light bulb dimmed for the evening. These 2 stars are locked in an elliptical waltz. Sometimes they drift as far apart as the Sun and Pluto. Other times they swing in close, heating the space between them. They have been spinning around each other for billions of years, a clockwork mechanism older than the dinosaurs. But there is a third sibling. Far out in the cold, a trillion miles away from the main pair, sits Proxima Centauri. This is where our eyes are truly fixed. Proxima is a red dwarf, a small violent cinder of a star. It is so dim you cannot see it from Earth with the naked eye, yet it is the closest star to us in the entire universe. It is a tempestuous little world, prone to flares that blast deadly radiation into the dark, and circling this red ember is a planet. Proxima b, a world the size of Earth, sitting in the habitable zone where water might flow as liquid. It is not a paradise. It is likely tidally locked, meaning one side faces the star in eternal day and the other is frozen in eternal night. A twilight strip divides the burning rock from the ice. This is our target. This is the shore we are trying to reach, but to get there, we must survive the ocean. To cross this ocean, we naturally think of rockets. We picture the Saturn V roaring off the pad, or the Starship climbing into the sky on a pillar of fire. These machines are triumphs of engineering. They can carry us to the moon, they can carry us to Mars, but against the scale of Alpha Centauri they are useless. They are like trying to cross the Pacific Ocean by jumping. The problem is not engineering. The problem is a fundamental law of physics known as the rocket equation. It is a mathematical tyrant that rules every launch ever attempted. Here is the trap. To go forward in space, you have to throw something backward. That is Newton's third law. In a rocket, you throw hot gas. But to have that gas, you need to carry fuel tanks. Those tanks are heavy, so now your engines need to lift the ship and the fuel, but adding more fuel adds more weight, which requires even more fuel to lift that weight. It is a vicious cycle, a pyramid scheme of mass. Chemical rockets, the kind we use today, are weak. The energy released by burning oxygen and methane is pathetic compared to the distances we need to cross. To reach just 1% of the speed of light using chemical rockets, you would not need a fuel tank the size of a building. You would need a fuel tank larger than the observable universe. The math forbids it. The tyranny of the rocket equation slams the door in our face. So, if we want to reach Alpha Centauri in 400 years, we must abandon chemical fire. We need something millions of times more potent. We need the energy that powers the stars themselves. We need to build a ship that doesn't just carry fuel, but harvest the fundamental binding energy of matter. We need a nuclear pulse. We are looking for a design that can hold a civilization, shield it from the cold, and push it to speeds that make the space shuttle look like a toy wagon. The answer lies in a classified project from the Cold War. It was called Project Orion. The idea was simple, brutal, and terrifying. We build a ship the size of a mountain. This is not the sleek white plastic elegance of science fiction. This is the Leviathan. It is a dark industrial cathedral of steel and graphite, assembled in orbit because it is too heavy to ever touch the ground. It does not have wings. It does not have portholes. It looks like a skyscraper ripped from the bedrock and armoured for war. At the base of this vessel sits the most important component, the pusher plate. This is a massive shield, hundreds of feet wide, forged from thick alloys designed to survive hell. It is attached to the rest of the ship by giant shock-absorbing pistons, like the suspension of a cosmic truck. The engine does not burn fuel, it detonates it. The plan is to eject a small nuclear bomb behind the ship, let it drift a few hundred feet, and then detonate it. The explosion creates a wave of plasma, a literal wall of force that slams into the pusher plate. The plate catches the blast, the pistons absorb the shock, and the entire city gets kicked forward. Then you do it again and again. A heartbeat of atomic fire. To reach Alpha Centauri in 400 years, we need to ride these explosions for weeks. We are essentially surfing on the shockwaves of our own destruction. It is a paradox of human nature. The same weapon we built to end civilization on Earth becomes the only engine powerful enough to save it. When the drive is active, life on board the Leviathan changes. This is not the smooth, silent glide of an airliner. It is an earthquake in orbit. The sequence is rhythmic, like the beating of a mechanical heart. Every 3 seconds a unit is ejected. 1 second later, detonation. The flash outside is brighter than the sun. A sphere of plasma, hotter than the core of the Earth, slams into the pusher plate. Inside the ship you hear a dull, heavy thud. It sounds like a giant hammer striking the hull wrapped in velvet. This is not a sprint, it is a marathon of violence. To reach our target speed, we cannot just fire the engine for a few minutes. We must endure this bombardment for 10 days. That is nearly 300,000 detonations, 300,000 nuclear events pushing us faster and faster, turning the peaceful silence of orbit into a staccato drumroll of acceleration. Behind the ship, the view is apocalyptic. We are leaving a trail of radioactive fire across the solar system, a scar of light that can be seen from Mars. But ahead, the stars are steady. We're building up speed, slowly, painfully, until we are moving at 7 million miles per hour. That is 1% of the speed of light. It sounds slow to a physicist, but to a human, it is terrifyingly fast. We are now covering the distance from Earth to the Moon every 2 minutes. And then, the thudding stops. The last bomb is spent. The engines go cold. The silence rushes back in, louder than the explosions. We are now drifting. We're coasting. We have left the harbour of the sun, and we are alone in the open ocean. 6 months have passed since the engines fell silent. The Leviathan is now deep in the outer dark, far beyond the orbit of Pluto, and it is here that the crew gathers at the rear observatory for a ritual that happens only once in human history. The final sighting. They look back towards the sun. It is still the brightest star in the sky, a brilliant, piercing diamond against the velvet black. But it is shrinking. And next to it, if you use a telescope, you can see a tiny, fragile speck of blue dust. That is Earth. For the people on board, this is a psychological fracture. For 5,000 years, Earth meant the world. It meant the ground beneath your feet, the sky above your head. But now, Earth is just an object. It is a memory. You can block out your entire history, every war ever fought, every song ever sung with the tip of your thumb. It is a terrifying realization of scale. Everything you ever loved is on that speck, and you're leaving it behind forever, and the silence is growing. When the ship sends a message back home, a status report, a personal letter, it takes hours to reach the receiving dishes in Australia or California, and then you have to wait hours for the reply. The conversation is slowing down, the lag is stretching. Soon it will take days to get a response, then weeks, then years. The umbilical cord is being cut. The people on Earth are still alive, they are still going to work, paying taxes, falling in love. But to the crew of the Leviathan, they are becoming ghosts. The news they receive is old news. The photos are from the past. The ship is becoming its own universe, a solitary island drifting into the deep. There is no turning back now. The sun is just a star among many. And ahead lies the ice. We are now entering the Oort cloud. This is a region most people picture as a crowded asteroid field, like something out of a movie, where a pilot has to dodge rocks every few seconds. The reality is far more haunting. The Oort cloud is a spherical shell, a giant bubble of ice and rock that wraps around our entire solar system. It is the leftovers of creation, the debris kicked out when the planets were born. And it is massive. It stretches almost a quarter of the way to Alpha Centauri. To cross it will not take days, it will take a century. But it is not crowded. It is a ghost town. The comets here are billions of miles apart, drifting in total darkness. If you looked out the window, you would see nothing but black. Every few years, perhaps, the sensors might pick up a faint cold blip. A mountain of dirty ice, size of Manhattan, tumbling silently through the void. We pass it without a sound. It is a traveller that has never felt the warmth of the sun, and likely never will. For the crew, this is the era of the long watch. The excitement of the launch is gone. The adrenaline of the nuclear pulse has faded. Now there is only the routine. The ship is a spinning cylinder, using centrifugal force to mimic gravity. Inside, life tries to imitate the world they left behind. There are parks with artificial light, there are schools, there are concerts, but outside the temperature is just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. We are walking through the graveyard of the solar system. This is the frozen halo that protects the warmth of the inner planets from the interstellar wind. And as we drift through it, year after year, the sun continues to dim. It is no longer a disk. It is just the brightest star in the sky, indistinguishable from Sirius or Canopus to the untrained eye. We have left the room. We are now standing in the doorway, looking out into the night. Inside the hull, a new reality has taken hold. This is no longer a vehicle transporting astronauts. It is a closed city, a spinning cylinder 5 miles long, suspended in the emptiness. It is a pressurized bubble of life in a universe of death. If you were standing inside, you would look up and see not the sky, but the other side of the world, You would see houses, fields, and rivers hanging above your head, glued to the ceiling by the spin of the ship. Clouds would form in the centre of the cylinder, drifting in the zero-gravity zone along the axis, creating rain that falls upwards and downwards at the same time. Life here is defined by one brutal, inescapable law, the loop. On Earth, we can be wasteful. If you pour water on the ground, it flows into a river, evaporates, and comes back as rain. The planet cleans up after us. But on the Leviathan, there is no planet. There is only the machine. Every molecule of water you drink, every breath of air you take, has been used 1,000 times before. The coffee in your cup was once the sweat of a technician, the humidity of a greenhouse, the ice from a comet. It is a society of absolute efficiency. To throw something away is a crime, because there is no away. There is only here. The hull is the only thing separating this fragile bubble of nitrogen and oxygen from the absolute vacuum outside. People walk through the parks not just for leisure, but because the trees are the lungs of the ship. They are the biological machines keeping everyone alive. The psychological shift is profound. The first generation remembers Earth. They remember the smell of the ocean, the chaotic weather, the endless horizon. But their children, the ones born in the void, will know only the curvature of the cylinder. To them, Earth will be a myth, a story told by elders, a blue marble in a picture frame. This ship is their universe. They are the citizens of the void, and their loyalty is not to a nation on a distant planet, but to the hull that keeps them warm. Decades into the voyage, a child is born. Let us call him Atlas. He is the first true native of the black. He has no memory of the sun. He has never felt the wind on his face, only the recycled breeze of the ventilators. He has never stood under an open sky, only the metal roof of the habitat 500 meters above his head. For Atlas, gravity is not a force that pulls you down to the center of a planet. It is a force that pushes you out to the walls of a spinning drum. If he drops a ball, it does not fall straight. It curves, following the Coriolis effect, a constant reminder that he lives inside a giant gyroscope. His body is different too. Without the heavy gravity of Earth, he grows taller, thinner, his bones are lighter, his heart doesn't have to work as hard to pump blood. If he were to return to Earth, the gravity would crush him. He is an alien to his own ancestral home, and socially he is a prisoner of a destiny he did not choose. This is the moral weight of the generation ship. Atlas was born to be a caretaker. His life has one purpose: to keep the machine running so that his great-grandchildren can step onto a new world. He is a link in a chain. He is the middle child of history, suspended between a past he cannot see and a future he will not live to touch. This creates a strange culture. The people of the Leviathan do not worship the sun, they worship the maintenance schedule. The heroes of their stories are not warriors or kings, but engineers who fixed a critical seal or botanists who saved the algae crop. They know that a single mistake, a single moment of negligence could kill everyone. They live in a glass house and the dark is always watching. 200 years pass. The ship is now halfway there. We are in the deepest part of the void, light years from any star. And something terrifying is happening inside the hull. It is not a mechanical failure, it is the failure of meaning. The people on board still speak English, but it is not the English of Earth. It has drifted. New words have emerged to describe the hum of the engines or the taste of recycled algae. Old words, words like mountain, horizon, ocean, are dying out. They are becoming academic terms like phlogiston or ether to us. Why would you need a word for ocean when the largest body of water you have ever seen is a swimming pool? The library of the ship is vast. It contains every movie, every song, every book ever written on Earth. But context is rotting. They watch films from the 21st century, but they do not understand the motivations. Why are the characters fighting over a piece of land? Why do they drive cars on the ground? Why is the sky blue? It is a game of telephone played over centuries. History is becoming mythology. The founders, the original crew, are seen as giants, almost divine figures who built the world and set it in motion. The destination, Proxima b, is no longer a scientific target. It is the promised land. It is heaven. This is the great danger of the slow road. We are not just transporting DNA, we are trying to transport a culture. But culture is fluid. It evaporates. By the time the Leviathan reaches its destination, the people on board may have forgotten why they left in the first place. They're a capsule of humanity, but they are evolving into something else, something strange, something adapted to the dark. There comes a moment, 2 centuries in, when the ship reaches the dead center of the journey. This is the point of maximum isolation. If you look out the rear telescope, the sun is just a bright star. If you look out the front telescope, Alpha Centauri is just a bright star. To the naked eye, they are identical. The ship is now balancing on the tip of a needle. It is equidistant from where it began and where it will end. Here, the universe feels truly static. For 50 years, the star field outside has not changed. The constellations are frozen. There is no sense of speed, no rushing wind, no passing landmarks. Just the eternal, unblinking stare of the galaxy. It is like being in a rowboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a windless night where the water is black glass and the horizon has vanished. The silence from Earth is now absolute. Technically, a radio signal could still reach the ship, but it would be 4 years old by the time it arrived. But nobody is sending them anymore. The civilization that launched the ship has moved on. Empires on Earth may have risen and fallen. Wars may have burned cities to ash. Or perhaps they have forgotten the Leviathan entirely, dismissing it as a foolish legend from a more optimistic age. The ship is now a monastery. The crew lives in a state of suspended animation, not physically, but culturally. They are preserving a flame in a vacuum. The days blur into weeks, the weeks into years. The excitement of the mission has been replaced by the heavy rhythmic breathing of the life support systems. They are waiting. They are the monks of the void, chanting the liturgy of oxygen levels and water purity, tending to the garden that keeps them alive, floating in the great silent gap between the stars. While the crew fights the erosion of memory, the ship itself fights the erosion of matter. The greatest enemy in deep space is not aliens nor black holes. It is thermodynamics. It is the universal law that says everything eventually breaks. We think of space as a vacuum, but it is not perfectly empty. It is filled with dust, tiny microscopic grains of silica and ice. When you hit a grain of dust at 7 million miles per hour, it hits back with the force of a grenade. Over centuries, the forward shield of the Leviathan is pitted and scarred. It looks like it has been sandblasted by a cosmic storm. Inside, the battle is even more desperate. Plastics become brittle under the constant bombardment of cosmic rays. Rubber seals dry out and crack. Wires degrade. The ship that launched was a shiny, pristine marvel of engineering. The ship that arrives is a patchwork quilt of repairs. This is the ship of Theseus paradox played out in real life. By the time they reach Alpha Centauri, almost no original part of the vessel remains. Every air filter has been replaced 1,000 times. Every bolt has been tightened, stripped, and replaced. The hull plates have been patched over and over again. The crew are no longer just passengers. They are mechanics in a lifeboat that is slowly dissolving. Their daily lives are a constant war against leaks, shorts, and failures. They live in a machine that is tired. You can hear it in the groaning of the metal as the cylinder spins. You can smell it in the air, which carries the faint metallic tang of ozone and old lubricant. The shiny future of the launch is gone. What remains is a gritty industrial survival story, written in grease and welding sparks, 390 years after launch. The journey is almost over. Alpha Centauri is no longer a star. It is a blazing sun in the window, flooding the bridge with a strange alien light. But we are moving too fast. We are careening towards the system at 7 million miles per hour. If we do nothing, we will fly right through the target and vanish into the deep dark on the other side. It is time to brake. But in space, there are no brake pads. There is no friction. To stop, you must do something counterintuitive. You must turn the entire ship around. This is the flip. For the first time in centuries, the gyroscopes spin up. The massive cylinder begins to rotate end over end. For the people inside, this is a moment of profound disorientation. The stars outside begin to wheel in impossible directions. The sunlight from Alpha Centauri slides from the front window to the rear cameras, and then the moment of truth. The engineers send the signal to the engine room. They are waking a sleeping giant. These nuclear pulse units have sat cold and dormant for nearly 4 centuries. The lubricants have frozen. The circuits have degraded. If the engine fails to ignite, the mission ends here, in a high-speed flyby of the promised land. Everyone holds their breath. The command is given. Boom! The ship shudders. Dust shakes from the rafters. The first bomb in 400 years has detonated. The pusher plate catches the fire and the deceleration begins. For the crew, the thud-thud-thud of the drive returns, a sound their great-grandparents described in journals but which they have never heard. It is the heartbeat of the ship beating once more. We are now riding a pillar of fire backwards. The exhaust plume is pointing directly at Alpha Centauri, acting as a fiery brake against our momentum. We are shedding speed, bleeding away the energy of the crossing, slowing down from the incomprehensible velocity of the void to the gentle orbital speed of a planet. The silence is over. We have arrived at the doorstep. The deceleration is over. The great ship, now battered and scarred, slips into a stable orbit around Proxima Centauri b. For the people on board, the first look at the new world is not a celebration. It is a shock. They have lived their entire lives inside a metal tube, surrounded by grey walls and artificial light. Now they look out the window and see a sphere of colours so violent they hurt the eyes. They see the deep, bruised purple of the oceans. They see the rusty red of the continents, and they see the star. It is not the friendly yellow sun of Earth. It is a bloated, angry red eye hanging motionless in the sky, bathing the entire world in a perpetual bloody sunset. The landing craft detach. These are small, cramped shuttles, dropping through the atmosphere like stones. As they pierce the clouds, the turbulence shakes them to their bones. This is the first time in 400 years that humans have felt the wind. When the hatch finally opens, the air that rushes in smells wrong. It doesn't smell like the recycled metallic air of the ship. It smells of sulfur, strange salts, and alien chemistry. And then they step out. Gravity grabs them. Real gravity. It is heavier than the spin of the ship. It pulls at their weakened muscles, their elongated bones. Every step is a labour. They stumble onto the rocky surface, gasping, their hearts pounding in their chests. They have made it. They have crossed the void. But as they look around this red twilight landscape, a terrifying realization settles in. They are not the conquerors of this world. They are the intruders. The environment is harsh, the radiation is high, and the light is alien. They are biologically adapted to a climate-controlled cylinder, not a rugged planet. They have saved humanity, but in doing so they have become something else. They are no longer Earthlings, they are Centaurians. And as they look up at the sky, searching for the tiny yellow star that was once their home, they realize they can no longer find it. It is lost in the mist. The slow road has exacted its price. To reach the future, they had to completely forget the past. But 400 years is too long. If we want to keep our humanity, we need to go faster, much faster. We need to cut the journey from centuries to decades. To do that, we must abandon the crude power of atomic bombs and harness the very fire of the stars. 400 years is not a mission. It is a sacrifice. It demands that we condemn 5 generations to live and die in a metal tube so that the 6th can walk on a new world. It is noble, but it is tragic. The human spirit craves something else. We want to go ourselves. We want the person who launches the ship to be the same person who lands it. We want to cross the gulf in a single human lifetime. To do this, we need speed. And not just a little more speed. We need to move 10 times faster than the Orion project. We need to reach 10%, maybe even 20% of the speed of light. At these speeds, the brute force of atomic bombs is too clumsy. We need elegance. We need efficiency. We need to stop exploding fuel and start burning it. We need to bottle a star. This is the promise of fusion propulsion. The physics are beautifully simple. You take the lightest element in the universe, hydrogen, and you crush it. You squeeze it with magnetic fields so intense that the atoms have no choice but to merge. When they fuse, they release a scream of energy. They become helium, and in that transformation, a tiny fraction of their mass is converted into pure fire. This is the same reaction that powers the sun. It is the engine of the cosmos. But on a ship, we are not just making heat, we are making thrust. We channel that screaming plasma out the back of the ship using magnetic nozzles. It is a blowtorch of creation. Unlike the stuttering thud-thud-thud of the nuclear pulse, a fusion drive is a continuous roaring event. It is a long, steady push that never stops. The ship required for this is a different beast entirely. It is not a clumsy armoured mountain. It is a needle. It is a long skeletal spine. hundreds of meters long, dominated by massive fuel tanks and cooling radiators that glow red-hot against the black. At the back sits the engine, a complex heart of superconducting magnets and lasers. This is the Daedalus class. This is the Firefly. This is the machine that will turn the galaxy into a backyard. But there is a catch. Fusion is difficult. Atomic nuclei are positively charged, which means they hate each other. They are like two powerful magnets fighting to push each other apart. To force them to touch, to force them to fuse, requires immense pressure and heat. In the sun, gravity does the work. On a ship, we don't have gravity. We have to bring our own pressure. This is where we introduce the most dangerous substance in existence, antimatter. Antimatter is the mirror image of reality. It is identical to normal matter, but with an opposite charge, and when it touches normal matter, they don't just bump. They annihilate. They vanish in a flash of pure energy, adhering to Einstein's famous equation with 100% efficiency. It is a violence that makes nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. We cannot fuel the entire ship with this stuff. It is too expensive to make and too terrifying to store. But we don't need to. We use it as a catalyst. We use it as the spark plug. The concept is called antimatter catalyzed nuclear pulse propulsion. We take a small pellet of fusion fuel, deuterium and helium-3, and we inject it with a microscopic whisper of antiprotons. The antimatter annihilates the core of the pellet, creating an instant localized hell. This heat triggers the fusion reaction from the inside out. It is like using a drop of venom to start a fire. This changes everything. We no longer need massive lasers or crushing magnetic fields to start the engine. We just need the catalyst. The ship becomes lighter. The engine becomes more efficient. We can now pack enough energy to push the vessel not just to a crawl, but to a sprint. We're talking about speeds that warp the way we see the universe. We're talking about reaching Alpha Centauri in 50 years. But the price of this speed is living on a knife's edge. You're travelling through the dark, sleeping on top of a magnetic bottle containing the only thing in the universe that can delete you from existence instantly. But there is an even bolder idea, one that says, why carry the engine at all? Every rocket ever built, from the fireworks of ancient China to the fusion drives of the future, suffers from the same curse. You have to carry your fuel, and because the fuel is heavy, you need more fuel to carry the fuel. It is the tyranny of the rocket equation, and it never sleeps. But what if we could leave the fuel behind? What if we could leave the engine on Earth and just send the ship? This is the concept of the light sail. It is elegant, silent, and terrifyingly powerful. We build a ship that is almost weightless. It is not a hull of steel. It is a gossamer web, a mirror of ultra-thin material, perhaps gold or silicon stretching for miles in the dark. It is thinner than a soap bubble, yet strong enough to catch a hurricane. But we're not catching wind. We're catching light. Photons, the particles of light, have no mass, but they have momentum. When a photon bounces off a mirror, it gives it a tiny microscopic kick. One photon does nothing, but if you fire a trillion photons at a mirror, you get a push, you get thrust. To reach Alpha Centauri in 50 years, we cannot rely on the gentle light of the sun. It is too weak. We need a storm. We need to build a massive array of lasers, either in the deserts of Earth or on the dark side of the moon. A battery of cannons firing a synchronized beam of coherent light, billions of watts strong, aimed at a single point in the sky. The ship unfurls its sail. The laser strikes it, and the acceleration is instant. There is no fire. There is no exhaust. There is just a blinding light and a silent, brutal push. The ship rides the beam like a surfer on a tsunami, accelerating not for years, but for minutes. It is the ultimate cheat code of physics. We are stealing the energy from home and beaming it across the void. This method requires a leap of faith. It requires us to turn the Earth itself into the engine. Imagine a field of lasers covering hundreds of square miles in the Atacama Desert, or perhaps a city of light built on the dark side of the moon. This array is not just a flashlight. It is the most powerful machine ever constructed. When it fires, it consumes more electricity than the entire human civilization produces today. For those few minutes of the launch, Earth goes dark. All the power of our cities, our factories, our homes, is funneled into a single blinding pillar of coherent light. This beam shoots up into the sky, pierces the atmosphere, and strikes the sail of the waiting starship. The connection is physical. The beam is a tether. As long as the light hits the sail, the ship accelerates. But this tether is fragile. The ship is riding a needle of light across millions of miles. If the laser array on Earth drifts by a fraction of a degree, or if the sail wobbles, the beam misses. The push vanishes. The ship is left drifting in the dark, powerless, with no way to turn around and no way to call for help. It is the ultimate trust exercise. The crew on board, or the AI guiding the probe, is entirely dependent on the people back home keeping the lights on. They are the kite, and we hold the string. And for the first few weeks, that string is pulled tight. The acceleration is not a gentle drift. It is a violent shove. We are imparting enough energy to reach 20% of the speed of light, and we're doing it while the ship is still in our backyard. If you are on board the ship during this laser-driven ascent, you're not floating. You're being pinned to the floor. Because the laser beam spreads out over distance, it loses power the further you get from Earth. This means we cannot accelerate slowly over years. We have to do it all at the start while the beam is tight and strong. We have to pack decades of acceleration into a few agonizing weeks. The crew spends this time in immersion tanks, floating in oxygenated liquid to keep their blood pumping and their bones from snapping. The G-forces are relentless. It feels like an elephant is sitting on your chest day after day. You cannot walk. You cannot eat solid food. You just exist, wrapped in a cocoon of survival systems, listening to the hum of the cooling pumps fighting the heat of the laser. Outside, the universe is distorting. We are moving so fast that the light from the stars behind us is being redshifted into invisibility, while the stars ahead are turning blue and violet. We pass the orbit of Mars in hours. We cross the orbit of Pluto in days. The solar system, which took Voyager decades to traverse, is flashing by like fence posts on a highway. And then, abruptly it ends. The laser on Earth cuts off. The weight lifts from your chest. The roar of the energy transfer vanishes. You're released into a silence deeper than anything you have ever known. You check the speedometer. You're moving at 130 million miles per hour. You are the fastest human being who has ever lived. The push is over. The coasting has begun. At this speed, Einstein is no longer just a theorist. He is a passenger. When you travel at 20% of the speed of light, the view out the window begins to change. The universe you knew is gone. Ahead of you, the stars are no longer white. They are shifting. The light waves are being compressed by your sheer speed, crunching up like the bellows of an accordion. The stars turn blue, then violet, and finally many of them disappear entirely, shifted up into the ultraviolet spectrum where the human eye cannot see. You're flying into a ghost tunnel. Behind you, the opposite happens. The light waves are being stretched out. The yellow sun of Earth fades to a deep angry red, then to infrared, and then into total darkness. You're running away from the light so fast that it struggles to catch you. This is called relativistic aberration. It feels as if the stars ahead are clustering together, bunching up in the center of your vision, as if you are falling down a well of light. It is a beautiful, terrifying hallucination. But the real distortion is happening on your wrist. At these speeds, time itself begins to dilate. It is subtle at first, a few seconds here, a few minutes there, but it is real. For every year that passes for you on the ship, slightly more time passes back on Earth. You're aging slower than the people you left behind. You're slipping out of sync with the rest of humanity. And then there is the silence. Communication is now a nightmare. If you send a message to Earth saying hello, it travels at the speed of light. But you are also travelling at a significant fraction of that speed. By the time your message reaches Earth, and their reply reaches you, years have passed. You're not having a conversation. You're exchanging historical documents. You're two ghosts shouting across a canyon that gets wider every second. But the greatest danger at these speeds is not time, it is space. We used to think the vacuum between stars was empty. We were wrong. It is filled with dust. At normal speeds, a grain of dust is annoying. At 20% of the speed of light, a grain of dust is a nuclear weapon. Kinetic energy increases with the square of velocity. When you hit a speck of sand at 130 million miles per hour, it does not just scratch the paint. It hits with the force of a tactical missile. It turns into a cloud of superheated plasma that can vaporize steel, shatter ceramics, and punch a hole straight through the heart of the ship. We are flying into a minefield, and we cannot dodge. At these speeds, by the time you see an obstacle, you have already hit it. So the ship must carry a shield, a massive sacrificial umbrella made of beryllium or ice, positioned miles ahead of the main vessel. This shield takes the hits. It glows white-hot as it plows through the interstellar medium, ablating away, sacrificing its own mass to save the crew. And it is not just dust, there is gas. The void is filled with stray hydrogen atoms. When you slam into them this fast, they pass right through the hull like ghost bullets. They tear through your DNA. They turn the interior of the ship into a radiation oven. The crew must hide behind thick walls of water and plastic, huddled in the centre of the vessel, while the storm of invisible particles rages outside. The journey is not a peaceful glide. It is a 50-year bombardment. As the decades pass, the view outside undergoes a change more subtle than the relativistic shifting of colours, but far more profound for the human soul. For thousands of years, humans have looked up and seen the same pictures: Orion the hunter, Cassiopeia the queen, the Southern Cross. We navigated by them. We told stories about them. We assumed they were permanent, but they are not permanent. They are just a trick of perspective. As we cross the void, we are finally moving far enough to see the third dimension of the galaxy. This is called parallax. Think of it like driving down a highway. The fence posts near you zip by fast while the mountains in the distance barely move. Stars are the same. Some are close neighbours, others are distant giants. About 20 years into the flight, the W of Cassiopeia begins to warp. The stars are drifting apart. The belt of Orion snaps. The hunter loses his shape. The familiar figures of the zodiac are being dismantled star by star. The sky is breaking. To the crew, this is a deep, primal loss. The constellations were the wallpaper of Earth. They were the shared heritage of every human who ever lived. Now, they are gone. We are entering a region of the sky where the maps no longer work. We are seeing the stars as they truly are. Scattered, lonely fires in a three-dimensional deep, unconnected by lines, indifferent to our stories. We are no longer under the Earth's dome. We are in the wild. This brings us to the true cost of the 50-year sprint. It is not the fuel. It is not the money. It is the time. 50 years is a blink for a star, but it is the entirety of a human adulthood. The crew who boarded the ship were young. They were 25 years old, peak physical specimens full of fire and ambition. They said goodbye to their parents, their friends, the blue sky of Earth, believing they were embarking on a great adventure. And they were. But the adventure is slow. By the time the ship reaches the midpoint of the journey, those 25-year-olds are 50. Their hair is greying. Their parents back on Earth have likely died of old age. The friends they left behind have moved on, raised families and retired. The world they remember, the fashion, the music, the politics, is gone, replaced by a future they do not understand and will never see. By the time the deceleration lasers fire to slow them down at Alpha Centauri, the crew are 75 years old. They are elders. They have spent their entire productive lives inside a machine. They have never felt rain. They have never walked on grass. They have given their strength, their eyesight, and their youth to the void. This is the tragedy of the relativistic ship. It is a vessel that eats a generation. You do not build it for yourself. You build it so that you can die on a new world. The hands that land the ship will be trembling with age. The eyes that finally see the alien sunrise will be clouded with cataracts. The journey was the life. There is no going back, and there is barely enough time left to enjoy the arrival. We have crossed the ocean, but the price of the ticket was everything we had. There is one final problem with the 50-year sprint. How do you stop? If you used a laser to push you from Earth, you're now moving at 130 million miles per hour, and the laser is far behind you. You cannot turn around and use it to brake. You're a bullet without a target. We need a way to grab onto something in the empty void. We need friction where there is none. The answer is the magnetic sail. As we approach the Alpha Centauri system, the ship deploys a loop of superconducting wire. Thin as a hair but 50 miles wide, we run a massive electrical current through it. Instantly, an invisible magnetic field erupts around the ship, creating a force field thousands of miles across. This field acts like a parachute. It catches the thin, wispy gas of the interstellar medium. It slams into the stellar wind blowing from Alpha Centauri. The protons in the wind hit our magnetic field and bounce off. Each bounce steals a tiny bit of our momentum. It is a violent, shuddering deceleration. The The ship groans under the stress as it plows into the invisible wind of the stars. We are effectively aerobraking against the vacuum itself. Speed bleeds away. The stars stop blue shifting. The universe returns to its normal colours. We drift into orbit around Proxima Centauri, old men and women looking down at a new world. We have done the impossible. We have crossed the void in a single lifetime. But as we look in the mirror, we see the cost. We traded our lives for distance. Is there another way? A way to cheat not just the rocket equation, but the speed limit of the universe itself. A way to be home for dinner. To do that, we must leave the realm of engineering and enter the realm of pure theoretical magic. We must bend the fabric of space. We have tried burning fuel. We have tried pushing with light. But we are still trapped by the universal speed limit. 186,000 miles per second. Nothing can go faster. Einstein's law is absolute. It is the wall that keeps us in our cage. But there is a loophole. The law says objects cannot move faster than light. It says matter cannot move through space faster than light. But it says nothing about space itself. Space can do whatever it wants. It can stretch, it can shrink, and it can expand faster than light. We know this because it happened at the Big Bang. This is the third way, the impossible way. We stop trying to move the ship through the dark. Instead, we move the dark itself. Imagine you are standing on a carpet. You want to reach the other side of the room. You can walk, which is slow, or you can pull the carpet towards you. You stay still, but the destination arrives at your feet. This is the principle of the Alcubierre Drive. It is not an engine in the traditional sense. It does not have an exhaust. It is a geometry machine. It grabs the fabric of space-time in front of the ship and compresses it, scrunching it up like a piece of paper. At the same time, it grabs the space behind the ship and expands it. The result is a wave of space-time. The ship sits inside a flat, calm bubble in the middle, surfing this wave. The ship itself is not moving. It feels zero acceleration. The coffee in your cup does not ripple, but the bubble is moving. And because the bubble is made of space itself, it is not bound by the speed limit. It can cross the distance to Alpha Centauri not in centuries, not in decades, but in days. To build this wave, we need fuel. But not the fuel we know. We need something that violates common sense. We need negative mass. Gravity is attractive. Matter pulls matter. But for the warp drive, we need to push space apart behind us and pull it together in front of us. We need anti-gravity. This requires exotic matter. It's not just rare, it's a mathematical ghost. If you held a ball of negative mass in your hand, it wouldn't weigh nothing. It would weigh less than nothing. If you pushed it, it would move towards you. The ship is surrounded by a ring, a donut of this exotic energy. When activated, the ring tells space-time to get out of the way. Inside the bubble, the laws of physics are on pause. There is no G-force. You could be accelerating effectively at 1,000 Gs, and you wouldn't spill your tea. The ship is a stationary island in a moving river of space-time, but here is the catch. Here is why we're not leaving tomorrow. To warp space-time is not just hard, it is expensive. When Miguel Alcubierre first did the math in 1994, he calculated how much negative energy we would need to create a bubble just 10 meters wide. The answer was horrifying. To bend space this much, we would need to convert the entire mass of the observable universe into energy. It was an impossible number. It killed the dream before it began. But physics is the art of refinement. Over the decades, new equations have whittled that number down. We learned to make the bubble walls thinner. We learned to oscillate the field. The energy requirement dropped from the mass of the universe to the mass of the Milky Way, then to the mass of the Sun. Today, the calculations suggest we might only need the mass energy of the planet Jupiter. Think about that. To turn on the key of this engine, we have to annihilate a planet. We have to take a gas giant, crush it down to pure energy, and feed it into the ring. This is not AA batteries. This is not a nuclear reactor. This is stellar engineering. To fuel a warp drive, we would need to harvest the power of black holes or antimatter factories the size of moons. The ship itself is no longer just a vehicle. It is a cosmic event. When it moves, it distorts the gravity of the entire solar system. To stand near it would be to stand on the edge of a singularity. We are talking about a machine that eats worlds to cross the street. Let us assume, for a moment, that we solve the riddle. We harvest the energy. We build the ring. We activate the drive. What happens next? When the bubble forms, the universe disappears. The walls of the warp bubble are not glass. They are regions of infinite space-time distortion. Light cannot enter from the outside, and light cannot escape from the inside. To the crew, the stars simply vanish. There is no streak of light, no hyperspace tunnel. There is just absolute, suffocating blackness. You're cut off from the rest of creation. Inside this bubble, you are severed from the timeline of the universe. You cannot send a radio signal to Earth to tell them you are safe. The signal would hit the wall of the bubble and bounce back. You are running silent, deep in the fabric of reality. And ahead of the ship, something terrifying is happening. As the bubble plows through space, it sweeps up particles, dust, gas, photons. But because the bubble is moving faster than light, these particles cannot get out of the way. They pile up on the leading edge of the warp field. They are compressed into a layer of ultra-high energy radiation, hotter than the core of a supernova. The ship is pushing a wave of death in front of it. We are safe inside the bubble, but we are effectively flying behind a wall of gamma rays. This is the Hawking radiation of the drive. It is a reminder that even when we cheat physics, physics fights back. We are travelling in a shell of silence, pushing a storm of fire. 15 days, that is the promise. It is the length of a typical summer holiday. But these are the longest 2 weeks in the history of the human mind. Inside the ship, life is terrifyingly normal. Gravity is 1G. The air cycles, the lights hum. You can read a book, you can eat a sandwich, but if you walk to the window, you see the truth. The shutters are locked down. There are no stars. There is no sun. There is only the void. To look outside would be to look into a mirror of absolute nothingness. The human brain is not wired for this. We need landmarks. We need a horizon. In the bubble, we are not just lost. We are erased. For 15 days, the ship does not technically exist in the universe. It has stepped outside of the causality of creation. The crew moves quietly. There is a superstitious dread that hangs in the air. They know that a few meters away, just beyond the magnetic ring, space-time is being tortured into a shape that defies logic. If the field collapses, they will not just die. They will be spaghettified, scattered across light years in a nanosecond. So they wait. They count the hours. They check the reactor that is burning the equivalent of a planet to keep the lights on. They are like sailors in a submarine diving to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, listening to the hull groan under the pressure of the ocean. Only here, the ocean is time itself, and then the timer hits 0. The drive disengages, the exotic matter ring spins down. It is instantaneous. One moment, there is nothing. The next moment, the universe snaps back into existence. But it is not the universe you left. The constellations are wrong, the light is strange, and filling the entire forward view is the blinding triple glory of Alpha Centauri. There is no deceleration burn. There is no braking. You simply stop because you are never moving. You step out of the bubble and you are there. You look at the date on your watch. It has been 2 weeks since you left Earth. Your friends are still young. Your parents are still waiting for your call. You have crossed the greatest desert in existence, and you are still you. You have not sacrificed your life. You have simply spent a vacation travelling to the stars. This is the dream. From the 400-year generation ship that acts as a lifeboat, to the 50-year fusion sprint that acts as a test of endurance, to the 15-day warp jump that acts as a commute. We are looking at the evolution of our own ambition. We are a species born on a rock, but we were not made to stay there. Whether we crawl, run, or warp, the destination remains the same. The stars are waiting, and the silence between them is not a barrier, it is an invitation. Thank you for joining me on this journey across the deep. If you enjoyed this ride through the physics of the impossible, you know what to do. Sleep well, dream of the void, and I will see you in the next one. The first thing you notice is not the view. It is not the red light streaming through the viewports. It is the silence. For the entire duration of the journey, whether it was the 50-year scream of the fusion drive or the 400-year heartbeat of the nuclear pulse, there was always sound. The ship was a living thing. It groaned, it vibrated, it hummed with the aggressive energy required to cross the void. The noise was a constant reminder that we were fighting against the vacuum, pushing back against the physics that wanted us to stay on Earth. But now the engines are dead. The fuel is spent. The cooling pumps have spun down, and the silence that rushes in to fill the gap is heavy. It presses against your ears. It feels unnatural, like the sudden pause after a thunderstorm. You're strapped into your crash couch, listening to the blood rushing in your own ears. You look at the person next to you. They are pale. They are trembling. We have done it. The navigation computer confirms it. The distance to target is 0. We are no longer travellers. We are arrivals. But the feeling in your chest is not triumph. It is a primal, biting fear. As long as we are moving, we had a purpose. Get there. Now that we are here, the mission parameters have shifted to something far more terrifying. Stay alive. The ship drifts into a high orbit over the equator. Beneath us, the planet rotates with a slow, agonizing majesty. It does not look like Earth. It looks like a bruised fruit. The oceans are deep purple, almost black, hungry for the dim light of the star. The continents are rusted iron and grey rock, and the clouds are thick, swollen ribbons of vapour that never seem to dissipate. We are drifting over a world that has never known a human footprint. It has never heard a human voice. It is indifferent to our struggle. We have spent our entire history looking up at this star, dreaming of it, writing songs about it. But now that we are hovering above its surface, we realise the truth. This is not a promised land. It is a fortress, and we are the invaders. The captain's voice crackles over the intercom, breaking the spell. Prepare for atmospheric entry. The silence is about to end. We are trading the cold vacuum of space for the violent turbulence of an alien sky. The long road is over, the hard road has just begun. The hatch opens with a hiss of equalization. The first breath of alien air is filtered through your suit, but you can still taste the dust. It tastes metallic, old. But the real shock isn't the air, it's the light. On Earth, we're used to a yellow sun, a bright, cheerful lamp that moves across the sky, marking the passage of time. Sunrise implies hope, sunset implies rest. But here, the sun does not move. Proxima Centauri sits low on the horizon, a bloated, angry red ember. It is huge, 3 times the size of the sun you remember, but it is dim. It bathes the landscape in a perpetual bloody twilight. The rocks are not grey, they are deep crimson. The shadows are not black, they are long, stretching pools of maroon darkness that never shift. This is the reality of a tidally locked world. Because Proxima b is so close to its star, gravity has grabbed it and refused to let go. One side of the planet faces the fire forever, the other faces the ice forever. We have landed in the habitable strip between them, the Terminator line, and the star is watching you. It feels personal. On Earth, the sun is indifferent. It passes overhead and leaves you alone at night. Here, the sun is a fixed point. It hangs there, unblinking, like a great red eye staring down at you. It will be there when you eat. It will be there when you work. It will be there when you try to sleep. There is no morning here. There is no evening. There is only now. The passage of time dissolves. Without the rhythm of day and night, your internal clock begins to drift. You feel a strange, creeping anxiety, a primal sense that the world has stopped turning. You're standing on a frozen moment in time, trapped in an eternal sunset that never actually fades into night. You look at your watch. It says 10 p.m, but outside, the red light is exactly the same as it was at 10 a.m. This is the first psychological casualty of the new world, the death of the day. We are not just fighting the light. We're fighting what the light carries. To the naked eye, the landscape looks peaceful. It is a still, quiet desert of red rock and ice. But if you look at the Geiger counter on your wrist, the numbers are scrolling fast. Too fast. The air here is sizzling. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf. It sounds small and harmless, but in stellar terms, dwarf means unstable. This star is a temperamental child. Unlike our steady, reliable sun, Proxima is prone to violent tantrums. It unleashes solar flares that are hundreds of times more powerful than anything recorded in human history. When these flares hit, they don't just warm the planet, they flay it. We have landed during a quiet period, but that is a relative term. Even now, invisible particles are raining down on us. They punch through the thin atmosphere. They tear through the fabric of the tents. They are slicing through our DNA like microscopic bullets. This is the cruelty of this world. It invites you in with liquid water and a solid surface, but then it tries to sterilize you. The view outside is beautiful. a gothic masterpiece of purple cliffs and crimson skies, but you cannot linger in it. To stand outside for an hour during a flare event would be a death sentence. The alarm on the habitat module blares. It's a harsh, rhythmic klaxon. Flare imminent. Seek shelter. We don't run to the hills. We don't look for a cave. We grab shovels. The first order of business on Proxima b is not to explore the horizon, but to hide from it. We realise with a sinking heart that we didn't travel 4 light years to walk in the sun. We travelled 4 light years to become moles. The surface is a trap. If we want to survive the invisible rain, we have to go down. The flare passes. The radiation counters tick down. But the lesson has been learned. We cannot live on the surface. To stay up here is to die. We begin the Great Burial. On Earth, architecture is about defiance. We build skyscrapers that pierce the clouds. We build glass towers that drink in the light. We want to be seen. But here, architecture is about cowardice. We want to hide. The heavy construction drones roll out of the cargo bay. They are not building foundations. They are digging a hole, a massive scar in the red dirt. We take the habitation modules, the shiny, high-tech cylinders that carried us across the stars, and we lower them into the ground. Then comes the most painful part. We cover them up. We push the alien soil, the sharp, radioactive regolith over the roofs of our new homes. We pile it metre by metre until the windows are covered, until the red light is blocked out completely. We are burying our city before we have even lived in it. The psychology of this moment is crushing. Humans are creatures of the horizon. We evolved on the African savannah, where we could see for miles. We feel safe when we can see what is coming. But now we are sealing ourselves in a box. We are voluntarily walking into a dungeon. When the airlock cycles shut for the first time underground, the feeling is not one of safety. It is claustrophobia. You are trapped under tons of rock. The air is recycled. The light is artificial LED strips mimicking a noon that doesn't exist. There is no weather down here. There is no wind. We call it the Warren. It is a maze of tunnels and pressure vessels, a submarine in a sea of rock. We tell ourselves it is a habitat. We tell ourselves it is a cocoon where the colony will grow. But late at night, when the ventilation hums and the walls feel too close, it doesn't feel like a home. It feels like we have dug our own tomb, climbed inside and pulled the dirt in after us. And in a way, we have. The people who entered these tunnels will likely never leave them. We have traded the infinite sky for a ceiling of stone. Safe inside the Warren, we begin to analyse what lies outside. The sensors on the surface are painting a picture of the atmosphere, and it is a picture of violence. The air on Proxima b is thick. On Earth, the atmospheric pressure is 1 bar. Here, it is closer to 3. This means the air is heavy. It presses against the hull of the buried modules like a deep ocean current. When the wind blows on the surface, it doesn't just whistle, it roars. It sounds like a freight train screaming over the roof of our tomb. Because the air is so dense, sound travels differently. It carries further. It hits harder. If you were standing outside, a shout would sound deeper, booming in your chest. The very acoustics of this world are alien. We cannot breathe it, of course. It is mostly nitrogen, like Earth, but it is laced with carbon dioxide and exotic sulfur compounds spewed from the planet's volcanoes. One lungful would not kill you instantly, but you would suffocate in minutes, your throat burning from the acid. But we cannot live on recycled ship air forever. The tanks we brought from Earth are finite. We have to start drinking from the well. The engineers activate the external intakes. Giant fans spin up, sucking the heavy, toxic wind down into the filtration systems. The scrubbers go to work. They strip out the dust, the sulfur, the radiation. They isolate the nitrogen and the trace oxygen. And then, for the first time, the vents open in the habitat. The smell is instant. Even after the best filtration, you can't scrub the soul of a planet. The air smells sharp. It smells like ozone, like static electricity, like the air right after a lightning strike hit a pine forest. It tastes metallic on the tongue. It is a profound moment. We are no longer breathing the ghosts of Earth. We are breathing Proxima. We are taking the atoms of this new world into our lungs, letting them enter our blood. We are becoming physically part of this system. It is a biological baptism. We have stopped being tourists who brought their own supplies. We are now scavengers, living off the land, breathing the exhaust of a red sun. Now that we are breathing, we must understand where we are standing. On Earth, geography is defined by north and south, by equator and pole. Here, those words are meaningless. On Proxima b there are only two directions that matter, towards the fire and towards the ice. We are living on the razor's edge. This narrow strip of land, the Terminator, is the only place on the planet where water stays liquid. If you travel 1,000 miles to the east, you enter the subsolar point. This is the eye of the storm. The sun hangs directly overhead, forever. The ground is baked into a ceramic wasteland. The oceans boil into steam. It is a furnace that never cools. If you travel 1,000 miles to the west, you enter the dark side. Here, the sun never rises. It is a land of eternal starlight and crushing glaciers. The atmosphere freezes and falls as nitrogen snow. It is a tomb of absolute zero. But nature hates an imbalance. The heat from the day side desperately wants to reach the cold of the night side. And we are standing in the middle of the traffic. This creates the weather phenomenon known as the black ribbons. From the safety of our sensors, we watch them. They are titanic bands of cloud, black as ink, stretching from the hot side to the cold side. They are not clouds like we know. They are rivers of atmosphere, superheated steam rushing into the dark to cool down. They move at hundreds of miles per hour, carrying the energy of 1,000 atomic bombs every second. These are the veins of the planet. They pump heat around the globe, preventing the atmosphere from collapsing. But for us, they are monsters. When a black ribbon passes overhead, the sky vanishes. The red light is snuffed out. The wind screams at hurricane force for days on end, battering the ground with hail the size of fists. We realize then that this planet is not just passive rock. It is a dynamic, violent engine. We have built our home inside a heat exchanger. We are like fleas living on the piston of a giant machine, praying that the next stroke doesn't crush us. The black ribbons remind us that stability here is an illusion. We are living in the eye of an eternal planetary storm. Survival is not just about air and shelter, it is about calories. And here we face our first true existential crisis. We brought seeds from Earth: wheat, corn, rice, soy. These are the crops that built human civilization. They are designed for a yellow sun. They are designed for a specific spectrum of light, for a specific day and night cycle. But Proxima Centauri is red. Its light is weak in the blue and violet spectrums that plants use for photosynthesis. It is rich in infrared, which plants mostly ignore. When we plant the first crop in the underground greenhouse, we hold our breath. The seeds sprout, the shoots come up, but they are wrong. The wheat is pale, sickly, and spindly. It is starving for energy. The leaves stretch desperately towards the artificial lights, but they are not growing grain. They are just surviving. The corn refuses to flower. The rice rots in the water. The biology of Earth is rejecting the physics of Proxima. Panic sets in. The ship's food stores are finite. We have 3 years of freeze-dried rations. If we cannot grow food by then, we starve. The botanists go to war. This is not gardening. It is emergency genetic surgery. They begin splicing the crops, trying to force them to drink the red light. They lower the temperature. They pump the greenhouse full of extra carbon dioxide. They turn the lights on and off to simulate a fake Earth day, burning precious electricity. But the plants are stubborn. They are homesick. We are forced to make a desperate choice. We abandon the crops of our ancestors. We stop trying to grow wheat for bread. Instead, we turn to the scum, algae, spirulina, ugly green sludge that grows in vats. It is not romantic. It tastes like wet chalk, but it is efficient. It can eat the red light. For the next decade, the diet of the colony is a grey paste. We survive, but we lose the culture of food. There are no family dinners, no feasts. There is only fueling. We look at the pictures of golden fields of grain on Earth with a deep, aching hunger. We have filled our bellies, but we have starved our souls. But the hunger for food is nothing compared to the hunger for sleep. On Earth, sleep is a biological rhythm dictated by the planet itself. The sun goes down, melatonin rises, and you rest. The sun comes up, cortisol spikes, and you wake. It is a dance between biology and astronomy that has existed for billions of years. On Proxima b, the music has stopped. Living underground, we try to simulate it. We dim the lights at night. We brighten them in the morning, but the body knows it is a lie. The brain knows that just a few meters above, the red eye of Proxima is still staring, burning with the same intensity it had 10 hours ago. The planet's magnetic field, the slight variations in gravity, the very pulse of the world is alien. Insomnia spreads like a plague. We call it the sleep sickness. People wander the tunnels at 3 a.m., eyes wide, exhausted but unable to shut down. Tempers fray, hallucinations begin. The engineers start seeing shadows moving in the corners of their vision. The doctors report a spike in aggression, in depression, in sheer cognitive failure. We are a colony of zombies, drifting through the red haze of fatigue. We realize that we cannot just simulate Earth, we have to enforce it. The governor declares the curfew. It is a martial law of the mind. At 22-hour hours, a siren sounds through the warren. It is not a suggestion, it is a command. Every main light in the colony is cut, the internet is throttled, work is forbidden, silence is mandatory. We force the colony into a coma every night. We drug the water supply with mild sedatives to help the children drift off. It is dystopian, yes. It feels like a prison. But it works. We are hacking our own biology to survive. We are learning that to live on a world without night, we have to bring the darkness with us. Once the warren is sealed and the routine established, there is one task left. The formal announcement. We have to tell the family we left behind that we made it. On the surface, a massive high-gain antenna is deployed. It is a dish of white composite, aiming not at a planet but at a specific patch of empty sky where the sun shines as a bright, undistinguished star. The communications officer sits at the console. The message is typed out. It is short. Colony Alpha established. Touchdown successful. Casualties minimal. We are here. He presses enter. And then, nothing happens. There is no message sent confirmation that matters. There is only the physics of separation. The radio waves blast out of the dish at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. That sounds fast. But the distance is 4.24 light years. That message will travel for 4 years through the silence. It will pass through the dust, the cold, the nothingness. By the time it hits the receivers on Earth, if anyone is still listening, 4 years will have passed for them. Babies will have been born and started school. Presidents will have been elected. And then, if they reply instantly, that reply will take another 4 years to get back to us. 8.5 years. That is the lag. The officer stares at the screen, realizing the horror of the math. You're not having a conversation. You're sending a letter into a black hole. If a plague breaks out tomorrow and we ask for help, the answer will arrive nearly a decade too late. We are not just physically isolated. We are temporally severed. We are orphans. We can see our mother star in the sky, but we cannot speak to it. We are shouting into a canyon so wide that the echo takes a lifetime to return. And deep down, every colonist knows the darker truth. Earth might not even answer. In 8 years, we might just hear static, and that silence will be the loudest sound in the universe. Just as the silence of isolation settles in, the planet decides to scream. The sensors pick it up first. A pressure drop in the east, a darkening of the horizon. We are used to the wind here. It is a constant heavy push from the dense atmosphere. But this is different. This is not wind. This is a wall. A storm is brewing on the dayside, fueled by the eternal heat of the subsolar point. It has picked up the red iron dust from the deserts and lifted it miles into the air. It is a hurricane of rust moving at 200 miles per hour, and it is heading straight for the Terminator. When it hits the colony, it feels like an earthquake. We are underground, buried beneath meters of rock, but we can feel it. The ground shudders. The ventilation ducts rattle in their frames. And then comes the sound. It is a high-pitched, abrasive shriek, like a million metal claws dragging across the roof of our world. It is the sound of sand blasting. The dust on Proxima b is not soft sand. It is sharp, jagged shards of volcanic glass. At these speeds, it is an abrasive force that can strip paint, scour metal, and erode stone. For 3 weeks the storm rages. We are trapped. We cannot launch drones. We cannot open the airlocks. We are blind. The external cameras are scoured into opacity within hours. We sit in the command center, watching the external pressure gauges climb, listening to the relentless, grinding roar above our heads. The fear is not that the storm will blow us away. The fear is that it will bury us. We start to wonder, how deep is the dust piling up? Are the intake vents clogged? Is the weight of the sand on the roof of the habitat exceeding the structural limits? We are like sailors in a submarine listening to the hull groan under the pressure of the deep. But here, the ocean is made of stone. When the wind finally dies down and the silence returns, we don't know if we can even open the door. We have survived the storm, but we may have to dig our way out of our own grave. Time is a flat circle on a world without a sun that sets, but even here, 50 years eventually pass. The desperate, clawed-out burrows of the Warren are gone. In their place stands something far more permanent. We call it Twilight City. It is not a city of skylines and glass towers reaching for the clouds. It is an inverted metropolis, growing downwards into the crust like the roots of a great metallic tree. If you walk the streets today, you don't see rough-hewn rock walls. You see panels of bioluminescent algae lighting the corridors with a soft blue-green glow. You hear the hum of high-speed maglev trams connecting the residential sectors to the deep-bore mines. You smell ozone, synthetic coffee, and the damp, earthy scent of the mushroom farms. We have stopped surviving, we have started living. But this stability has come at a psychological price. We have become a species of the cave. The generation that landed here, the Skyborn, is old now. Their hair is white, their skin paper-thin from decades of artificial light. They still tell stories about the sun and the wind and the ocean, but to the majority of the population these are just fairy tales. The new generation, the ones born in the tunnels, have a fundamentally different relationship with the universe. To them, safety is a roof. Space is not an infinite frontier, it is a vacuum that wants to kill you. The surface is not a playground, it is a radiation zone. Psychologists have a name for it: cultural agoraphobia. If you open an airlock and show a Proxima-born child the open horizon, they don't feel awe, they feel panic. They look up at the infinite emptiness above and they feel exposed, like a crab pulled from its shell. They scream. They retreat to the tunnels where the walls are close, the air is thick, and the light is controlled. We have conquered the planet, but in doing so we have hidden from it. We are the kings of the underworld, ruling a kingdom of shadows, while the red sun burns unnoticed above our heads. We have built a civilization that checks the pressure seals before it says goodnight. A culture that fears the open sky as much as our ancestors feared the dark. But even in a world that seems dead, nature has a way of hiding in the cracks. For decades, we assumed the surface was sterile. We assumed the radiation flares and the brutal temperature swings made life impossible. We were arrogant. We were looking for life as we knew it. We were looking for green leaves and forests. But on Earth, green is the colour of efficiency. It is the colour plants use to process yellow sunlight. Here, the light is red. The discovery happens during a routine mining expedition in the Twilight Zone. A rover overturns a rock near a glacial melt stream, and there, clinging to the shadow side of the stone, is a patch of something. It is not mineral, it is biological, it is black. We call it the red edge. These are not plants in the traditional sense. They are a form of extremophile lichen, evolved to absorb every single photon of the weak red light. They are jet black because black absorbs heat. They are drinking the infrared radiation that our eyes can't even see. This changes everything. We are not alone. The planet is not empty. It is just shy. We start looking closer, and suddenly we see it everywhere. Black moss hiding in the crevices of the canyons, purple bacterial mats growing under the translucent ice sheets. Life is here, but it's huddled in the shadows just like us. It is a humbling moment. We came here thinking we were the masters of a dead rock, the bringers of life. But the rock was already alive. It was just waiting for us to notice. We are not the first inhabitants of Proxima b. We are just the loud, clumsy neighbours moving into a quiet neighbourhood. And as we stare at that patch of black moss, we realise that the universe is far more stubborn than we ever imagined. Life doesn't need a paradise. It just needs a chance. While we marvel at the black moss, a far more profound biological shift is happening inside the nursery of Twilight City. A child is born. Let us call him Orion. But Orion is not like the children of Earth. He is the first true native of Proxima b. His parents were born in the tunnels, but he is the first to carry the genetic markers of full adaptation. The first thing the doctors notice is his eyes. They are dark, almost black, with pupils that dilate far wider than a human's should. They have evolved, or rather epigenetically drifted, to hunt for photons in the dim bioluminescent gloom of the city. To him, the red twilight of the surface will not look dark. It will look vibrant. Then there is his frame. Proxima b is slightly heavier than Earth. The gravity here is about 10% stronger. It doesn't sound like much, but over a lifetime, it shapes you. Orion is not the tall, spindly figure of the zero-G generation. He is stocky. His bones are denser. His heart is a powerful, thick-walled pump designed to push blood against the extra weight of the world. He will walk with a heavy planted gait. He will never know the feeling of lightness that we associate with jumping. He is a creature of mass. But the biggest difference is not physical. It is mental. Orion will grow up without the concept of seasons. He will never understand winter or summer. To him, the world is static. It is a constant temperature, a constant light, a constant state. When his grandfather tries to explain the ocean tides of Earth, the rhythmic rising and falling of the sea, Orion will look at him with confusion. Why would the water move? Why would the sun leave the sky? To Orion, Earth will sound like a chaotic, unstable nightmare world, where the lights go out for 12 hours a day and water falls from the sky for no reason. He is not an exile. He is not a survivor. He is a Centaurian, and as he looks at the map of the solar system on the classroom wall, he does not point to the yellow star and say, "Home." He points to the red eye of Proxima and says, "Here." We have finally truly arrived, because we have produced a generation that has no desire to leave. As Orion grows, the separation becomes cultural. In the schools of Twilight City, history class is a strange experience. The teachers, holograms based on the logs of the original crew, talk about a world called Earth. They show pictures of it, a sphere that is aggressively, impossibly blue. To the children of the tunnels, these images look fake. They look like a glitch in the simulation. In their world, the primary colours are red, the rock, black, the shadow, and green, the algae. Blue is a rare, artificial colour, found only in warning lights or the hottest part of a welding flame. To imagine a sky made of blue fire, it feels like a fantasy, and the stories get weirder. The elders talk about rain that isn't toxic. They talk of walking outside without a suit, feeling the wind on your skin without dying of radiation poisoning in minutes. They talk about a sun that disappears every 12 hours, plunging the world into darkness, only to return the next morning. To a Centaurian child, this sounds terrifying. A sun that abandons you, a sky that leaks water. It sounds like a chaotic, broken world. They listen to the myths of Earth the same way we listen to stories about Olympus or Atlantis. It is a place of gods and monsters, not a place where real people live. The disconnect is heartbreaking for the few surviving Skyborn. They try to share their nostalgia. They play recordings of bird songs. They show videos of waves crashing on a beach. But the children just stare blankly. They don't hear the beauty. They hear noise. They don't see paradise. They see a waste of water. We are witnessing the death of memory. Earth is ceasing to be a physical location in the universe. It is becoming a legend. It is the Garden of Eden, a perfect, lost world that we were cast out of, and to which we can never return. And like all legends, it is slowly being rewritten. The children don't want to go back. Why would they? Their home is here, safe beneath the red rock, where the sun never sets and the ski never changes. But while the culture is adapting, the machines are dying. Entropy is patient, and after 70 years it has come for our technology. We brought the best engineering Earth had to offer: high-precision 3D printers, carbon fibre nanoweaves, microchips so advanced they could think. But these things were designed to be replaced, not repaired. They assumed a supply chain. They assumed you could order a new part from a factory in Shenzhen or Berlin. We don't have a factory. We have a hole in the ground. One by one, the printers clog. The microchips degrade under the constant bombardment of cosmic rays. The sleek white plastic panels of the original ship become brittle and crack, and we cannot fix them with the same elegance. We do not have the facilities to etch silicon at 5 nanometers, so we regress. The golden age of technology ends, and the iron age begins. We stop trying to replicate the delicate circuitry of Earth. Instead, we start welding. We start forging. The smooth, silent doors of the habitat are replaced by heavy, clanking bulkheads made of unrefined titanium mined from the local crust. The digital touchscreens shatter and are replaced by big, chunky analog buttons and mechanical levers. The aesthetic of the colony shifts. It is no longer the sterile hospital white of science fiction. It is becoming gritty, industrial, steampunk. The air smells of grease and ozone. The corridors are patchworks of mismatched metal, held together by rivets and sheer stubbornness. It is ugly, but it is alive. We are learning a hard lesson. High-tech is fragile. Low-tech is robust. A microchip can die from a stray particle, but a steel wrench lasts forever. We are becoming less refined, more brutal, and more durable. We are shedding the delicate skin of Earth and growing a hide of Proxima iron. We are no longer astronauts. We are blacksmiths. As the machines break, so does the Unity. For the first generation, survival was a collective effort. Everyone was in the same lifeboat. But now, with a population of thousands and resources running thin, the lifeboat is getting crowded. And when people are crowded, they divide. Two factions emerge, driven by two different philosophies of the future. The first are the diggers. They are the conservatives. They believe our destiny is underground. They want to dig deeper, reinforce the warren, and adapt humanity to the cave. Their goal is safety. Their motto is endure. They look at the surface and see only death. The second are the gardeners. They are the radicals. They're tired of hiding. They believe we didn't fly across the galaxy to live like rats. They want to terraform. They want to release gases to thicken the atmosphere, melt the ice caps, and turn Proxima b into a second Earth. Their goal is glory. Their motto is transform. The spark that lights the fuse is water. We recycle everything, but no system is perfect. We are slowly losing water to the ventilation systems and the chemical reactions in the walls. To grow, we need more. And the only place to get it is the night side. The night side is a frozen hellscape where the glaciers are miles thick. The gardeners want to detonate nuclear charges to melt the ice and create a localized atmosphere. The diggers are horrified. They argue that the radiation could blow back into the colony, or that the sudden release of steam could destabilize the black ribbons and destroy the weather patterns that keep us alive. It starts with debates in the council. Then it moves to protests in the corridors, and finally it ends in violence. A digger sabotage team blows up a gardener rover heading for the ice. The gardeners retaliate by cutting power to a digger mining sector. For the first time in the history of the colony, human blood is spilled on alien soil. We travelled 4 light years to escape the wars of Earth, only to find that we brought the war with us. We realise, with tragic clarity, that you can leave your planet, but you cannot leave your nature. The fighting stops as quickly as it began, not because of a peace treaty, but because of a realisation. A maintenance tech looks at the oxygen scrubbers during the blackout. They are failing. If we keep fighting, we don't just kill the enemy, we kill the air. This is the moment of the great filter. For decades, we looked at the night sky and asked Enrico Fermi's famous question, where is everybody? We saw billions of stars, but 0 civilizations. We assumed the hurdle was the distance. We assumed the filter was the speed of light, or the radiation of deep space, or the difficulty of evolving intelligence. But standing in the dark corridors of Twilight City, surrounded by angry neighbours and broken machines, we realise the truth. The filter is not outside. It is inside. The great filter is the moment a civilization gains the power to destroy itself, but has not yet gained the wisdom to control that power. It is the bottleneck where technology outpaces morality. On Earth, it was nuclear weapons. Here, it is the fragility of our ecosystem. We are a species that evolved to compete, to fight for dominance, to hoard resources. That instinct saved us on the savannah. But in a sealed pressure vessel 4 light years from home, that instinct is a suicide pact. We are staring into the abyss that has likely swallowed 1 million other civilizations. Maybe the galaxy is silent not because life is rare, but because intelligent life is self-correcting. Maybe they all reach this point, the resource war, and they don't stop. They burn their lifeboats. They poison their air. They die screaming in the dark, leaving behind only silent, empty ruins. We have a choice. We can be another statistic in the Fermi paradox, another dead world that couldn't grow up. Or we can evolve. We can decide that winning the argument is less important than breathing. We can rewrite our own nature. We lay down the weapons. We turn the power back on. We step back from the edge, terrified and humbled, knowing that we almost failed the only test that matters. Peace returns to the colony, but the problem remains. We're running out of water. We cannot nuke the glaciers, and we cannot stay thirsty. We need a third way, a way that is not war, but engineering. The solution comes from the past. We remember the plans for the laser sails that brought us here, the giant mirrors that caught the light of home. We decide to build our own. We launch a swarm of drones. They are not carrying weapons. They are carrying mylar, thousands of sheets of ultra-thin reflective material folded up like origami flowers. They fly up into orbit, high above the twilight zone, and then, in a synchronized ballet, they unfurl. It is a moment of pure, silent beauty. Suddenly there is a new star in the sky. It is not the angry red eye of Proxima. It is a brilliant diamond-white point of light. It hangs over the dark side of the planet, casting a beam of concentrated solar energy down onto the frozen wastes. We have built a mirror. We have built a second sun. On the ground, in the eternal night of the dark hemisphere, something miraculous happens. For the first time in 1 billion years, the temperature rises above freezing. The nitrogen snow stops falling. The ice begins to groan. It cracks. It melts. A river of liquid water, black and cold as oil, begins to flow towards the colony. We have solved the crisis, but we have done something more profound. We have taken control of the solar system. We are no longer just hiding from the star. We are manipulating it. We are bending its light to our will. As the water hits the intake pipes and the reservoirs of Twilight City begin to fill, we realize that we have crossed a threshold. We are not just inhabitants anymore. We are architects. The orbital mirrors are silent, but their effect is deafening. Deep in the eternal night of the anti-solar hemisphere, a sound is born that has not been heard on this world for eons. It starts as a groan, the thermal stress of ice that has been frozen since the planet's birth suddenly expanding. Then it becomes a crack, sharp as artillery fire, and finally it becomes a roar. The great melt has begun. Under the concentrated beams of the artificial stars, the glaciers are retreating. These are not small ice sheets. They are continents of frozen water, miles deep. As they liquefy, they unleash torrents of black water that carve new canyons through the rock. Waterfalls the size of Niagara erupt from the cliffs, crashing down into the dry basins below. But it is not just water that is waking up. It is the air. For billions of years, the atmosphere of Proxima b has been thin, most of it frozen out on the dark side as dry ice, solid carbon dioxide and nitrogen. As the heat hits it, this dry ice doesn't melt. It sublimates. It turns instantly from solid to gas, exploding outwards. The atmospheric pressure begins to spike. The wind picks up, carrying the heavy, wet scent of ancient ice. The sky, once a thin, wispy veil, begins to thicken. It becomes a blanket. Clouds form, real, heavy rain clouds, swirling in the mixing zones between the hot and cold sides. We are essentially jump-starting the heart of the planet. We are shocking it back to life, and as the air thickens, it begins to trap heat. The greenhouse effect kicks in. The warmth from the red eye on the day side is no longer lost to space. It is held, circulated, and shared. The temperature at the terminator rises. The frost on the roofs of Twilight City begins to drip. The planet is sweating. It is a messy, violent, chaotic process, but it is the chaos of life returning to a corpse. But planets are not passive things. They are complex chemical systems that have been in equilibrium for eons. When you disturb that sleep, you don't just get water, you get consequences. The diggers warned us. They said the ice was a cage for ghosts. They were right. As the glaciers on the night side retreat, they expose rock that hasn't seen the sky since the planet formed. And trapped in that ice, and in the clathrates beneath the sea floor, are billions of tons of frozen gas. Methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. When the heat hits them, they don't just seep out, they erupt. The sensors in Twilight City scream first. Atmospheric composition alerts flash red across every screen. The oxygen levels aren't dropping, but the toxicity is spiking. The air outside turns a sickly, bruised yellow. It smells of rotten eggs and old fire. This is the greenhouse revolt. We wanted a thicker atmosphere, but we got a poison blanket. The pressure climbs so high that the seals on the airlocks begin to groan. The temperature doesn't just rise, it rockets. The Terminator line, once a frozen twilight, becomes a sweltering jungle of humidity and acid fog. We are forced to retreat. The few brave souls who had started walking on the surface in pressure suits are pulled back inside. The heavy blast doors are sealed. We are prisoners again, not of the cold, but of the heat. We realize we have woken a dragon. Terraforming is not a linear path of add heat, get Earth. It is a chaotic, violent feedback loop. We have kicked a stable system into chaos, and now the planet is trying to find a new equilibrium, one that might not include us. The engineers race to adjust the mirrors, to throttle the light, to calm the storm we created. We are learning the hardest lesson of a god. It is easy to start a world, but it's terrifyingly hard to control one. For 3 years the chemical storm rages. The mirrors are dimmed, the light is throttled back, but the planet has to work the fever out of its system. We sit in Twilight City, listening to the wind howl, watching the yellow fog press against the sensors, and then, one morning, the sensors pick up something new. It is not a warning siren. It is a rhythmic, gentle tapping on the external microphones. Tap, tap, tap. The chemists check the readouts. The sulfur levels have dropped. The methane has broken down in the upper atmosphere. The air is cooling, and the clouds, heavy with the moisture of the melted glaciers, are finally releasing their burden. It is raining. Not the acid rain of the early years, not the dry fall of dust. This is water, liquid, distilled, pure water, falling from the sky. The governor overrides the safety protocols. Open the blast shields. The heavy metal shutters grind open, and there, against the thick glass of the observation dome, we see it. Rivulets of water streaking the dust, puddles forming on the red rock. The yellow fog is being washed away, revealing a sky that is no longer bruised but a deep, clean violet. The entire city stops. People crowd into the observation decks. Children who have only known water as a rationed fluid in a cup press their hands against the glass, eyes wide. They watch the water fall from the sky and splash onto the ground. It is magic. Someone laughs, then someone cries. The tension of the greenhouse revolt breaks. We haven't killed the planet. We have washed it. A holiday is declared. No work is done today. We just watch the rain. We listen to the drumming sound, a sound that is written into our DNA but has been denied to us for centuries. It is the sound of life. It is the sound of a planet that is no longer fighting us, but accepting us. The dust is settling. The air is clean. The garden is ready to be planted. With the rain comes the moment we have been preparing for since we left orbit around Earth. The planet is wet. The pressure is high. The temperature is stable. It is time to deploy the seed. But we are not planting oaks or pines. Those are the aristocrats of the plant world. They need pampering. We need the soldiers. We need the grunts. In the biolabs, we have spent decades designing the perfect organism. It is a genetically modified hybrid of terrestrial lichen, cyanobacteria, and the native black moss we found in the rocks. It is ugly. It is a slimy, jet-black paste that smells like wet iron. But it is a masterpiece of survival. We call it Prometheus Black. It doesn't just grow, it eats rock. It secretes acid that dissolves the red stone, extracting minerals to build soil. It drinks the infrared light of the red sun, and most importantly, it breathes. It takes the carbon dioxide that nearly killed us and turns it into oxygen. The deployment is not done by hand, it is an aerial bombardment. Drones fly low over the Terminator, spraying the black sludge onto the wet rocks. They cover the hills, the valleys, the newly formed riverbanks. For weeks the landscape looks barren, just wet rock stained with ink. But then the transformation begins. It starts as a fuzz, a velvet texture on the stone. Then it spreads. The black stain grows, connecting across the valleys, creeping up the mountains. It is not the vibrant emerald green of Earth. It is a deep, dark, gothic purple-black. To human eyes it looks like a bruise spreading across the world, but to the sensors it is beautiful. The oxygen levels begin to tick up, slowly, painfully slowly. It will take 1,000 years for the air to be breathable for us. We will not live to walk in this garden without a mask. Our children will not live to see it, but we have started the engine. We have turned a dead rock into a living lung. The invasion has begun, and this time the weapon is life itself. 3 centuries pass. The black moss has done its work. The air is still not perfect. The carbon dioxide levels would make you dizzy, and the oxygen is still thin like a mountaintop on Earth, but the pressure has stabilized. This is the milestone we have been waiting for. The pressure point. For the first time in human history on this world, the atmospheric pressure outside the habitat matches the pressure inside. The crushing weight of the Proxima atmosphere has been balanced. This means we no longer need the heavy armoured suits that made us look like deep-sea divers. A lone figure stands in the airlock. He is not a soldier or a scientist. He is a young man, a 14th generation Centaurian. He is wearing a simple thermal jacket, sturdy boots, and a lightweight rebreather mask over his mouth and nose. No helmet, no gloves. He cycles the lock. The door hisses open. He steps out. The first sensation is the wind. It is cold, sharp, and laden with moisture. It hits his exposed skin, ruffling his hair. It is a sensation his ancestors took for granted, but to him it is an electric shock. He feels the planet touching him. He looks up. There is no glass between him and the sky. The red sun is there, warm on his face. He raises a hand to shield his eyes, and realizes he's doing it with his own hand, not a robotic manipulator. He kneels down and touches the black moss. It is soft, damp, and alive. He laughs. It is a strange, breathless sound in the thin air. He's standing on an alien world, nearly naked to the elements, and he is not dying. He is just outside. He turns back to the camera and waves. It is a clumsy gesture, but it signals the end of the bunker age. We are no longer hiding from this world. We are walking on it. We have shed our armour. We have become vulnerable, and in that vulnerability, we have finally become free. With the thickened atmosphere and the oxygen rising, something unexpected happens. It is a trick of physics, a quirk of Rayleigh scattering, but to the people on the ground, it is a miracle. For centuries, the sky has been a gradient of yellow, orange, and the deep, oppressive red of the star. But now, as the sun dips lower, not setting, but wobbling towards the horizon due to the planet's slight libration, the light hits the new atmosphere at a shallow angle. The oxygen molecules scatter the light differently than the carbon dioxide did. They strip away the red. They filter out the orange, and for 20 minutes, during the peak of a solar flare, the sky turns blue. It is not the bright electric azure of Earth. It is a deep, rich indigo, a twilight purple that bleeds into violet, but it is blue. When it happens, the entire colony stops. People rush out of the tunnels, pulling on their masks, crowding the hillsides covered in black moss. They look up, their faces bathed in the strange, cool light. Old men weep openly. They point shaking fingers at the horizon. "Look," they whisper to their grandchildren, "that is the colour of the home we lost." For the children, it is a revelation. The myth has become real. The blue sky is no longer just a story told by holograms. It is a physical reality above their heads. They realize that they haven't just built a habitat. They have built a memory. It is a fleeting moment. As the flare dies down, the red returns, claiming the sky once more. But the psychological impact is permanent. We have proven that we are not prisoners of this red rock. We can change it. We can paint the sky. And if we can turn the sky blue, even for a moment, then there is nothing we cannot do. We are no longer just surviving on Proxima b, we are making it our own. We have changed the sky, but the most profound changes are happening closer to the ground. We are looking in the mirror, and the reflection is starting to drift. 14 generations of gravity, radiation, and red light have sculpted us. The human genome is plastic, and Proxima b is a heavy hand. The Centaurians of today are robust. They are shorter than their ancestors, built low to the ground to resist the extra gravity. Their bones are thick, their muscles dense knots of fibre. A Centaurian could crush the hand of an Earthling in a handshake without meaning to. But it is the skin that tells the real story. The pale, fragile epidermis of Earth is gone. In its place is a complexion that ranges from deep olive to a rich, burnished mahogany. This is not just a tan, it is a shield. The skin has thickened, developing a higher melanin density to block the UV flares that punch through the atmosphere. And the eyes. The eyes are the most striking feature. They have widened to capture the dim light. The pupils are huge, dominating the iris, and the retinas have shifted sensitivity, tuning into the infrared. A Centaurian can see heat. They can see the warmth of a pipe in a dark wall. They can track a person by their thermal footprint in a pitch-black tunnel. They are apex predators of the twilight. If you put a Centaurian next to a human from the 21st century, you would see the divergence. One is a creature of the blue sky and light gravity, delicate and tall. The other is a creature of the red cave and heavy rock, solid and dark. We are no longer one species. We are cousins. The umbilical cord to Earth has been stretched until it snapped. If a ship arrived from Earth tomorrow, the crew would not be greeted as brothers. They would be greeted as aliens. We have become the Martians we used to write stories about. We are the natives now, and this red world with its heavy air and black plants fits us like a glove. While we have been busy looking down at our new skin, we stopped looking up at the old one. For the first few centuries, the high-gain antenna was the most important structure in the colony. We waited for the news from home like children waiting for a letter. We devoured every data packet, the music, the scientific papers, the political speeches. It was our lifeline. But over time, the packets became sporadic. Then they became garbled. And then, about 50 years ago, they stopped. At first, we thought it was equipment failure. We checked the dishes. We boosted the gain. We listened on every frequency from radio to laser optical, but there was nothing. The yellow star in our sky was silent. We don't know what happened. Maybe it was a war that finally burned the old world to ash. Maybe it was a plague. Maybe they uploaded themselves into a digital singularity and simply stopped caring about the physical universe. Or maybe, most terrifying of all, they just forgot about us. Maybe civilization collapsed into a dark age, and the records of the starship were lost in the fire, becoming just another myth. The silence is haunting. For a long time, it was a source of despair. We felt abandoned. We were orphans crying in the dark and no one came. But slowly that despair has turned into resolve. The silence has forced us to grow up. As long as Earth was talking, we were just a colony. We were an outpost. We were Plan B. But if Earth is silent, then the equation changes. We are no longer Plan B, we are Plan A. We are the repository of human history. We are the keepers of the flame. If humanity has fallen back home, then we are the only ones left to carry the torch. We stop looking back. We turn the antenna around. We stop using it to listen for ghosts, and we start using it to broadcast. We send our own signal out into the void, not to Earth, but to the rest of the galaxy. We are here, we are alive, we survived. The silence of Earth is tragic, yes, but it is also a liberation. The umbilical cord is not just stretched, it is cut. We are on our own. And for the first time, we're not afraid of the dark. We are the light in the dark, and with the acceptance of our solitude comes a new ambition. If we are the last of humanity, we cannot stay in one basket. We are a virus of life, designed to spread. We cannot stop at the first shore we find, so the shipyards are reopened. But this time, we are not building a desperate ark out of fear. We are building a galleon of exploration. We are building the Pioneer. It does not look like the Leviathan. It is not a clumsy mountain of steel. It is sleek, built from the lightweight, ultra-strong alloys we have learned to forge in low gravity. It is powered by a new generation of fusion drive, efficient and silent, refined by centuries of surviving on limited energy. The destination is Wolf 1061. It is another red dwarf, 14 light-years away. It has planets. It has potential. The crew who volunteer for this mission are the best of us. They are young Centaurians with dark eyes and heavy bones. They know they will never see Proxima again. They know they will spend their lives in the void, just as their ancestors did. But the feeling on the launch pad is different. It is not a funeral. It is a graduation. As the Pioneer lifts off, riding a pillar of blue fire into the black sky, we realize something profound. For centuries, we were the new world. We were the frontier. But to the crew of that ship, we are the old world. We are the ancient, dusty history they are leaving behind. Proxima B is no longer the destination. It is the launch pad. The cycle has begun again. We have become the parents, watching our children leave home, knowing that the galaxy is no longer a void to be feared, but a garden to be planted. In the centre of Twilight City, there is a park. It is a quiet place, filled with the soft rustle of genetically adapted ferns and the gentle gurgle of a recirculated stream. But people do not come here for the plants. They come for the monument in the centre. It is a small, ugly metal box. It is scarred by re-entry heat. It is pitted by micrometeoroids. Its white paint has peeled away to reveal the dull aluminum beneath. It looks like a piece of junk. But it is the most sacred object on the planet. This is the landing module of the first ship. Tourists flock to it. Schoolchildren stand in front of it, their dark eyes wide with disbelief. They touch the glass case reverently. They cannot believe that their ancestors, those frail, pale giants of legend, crossed the black ocean in something so small. "It looks like a tin can," a child whispers. "It looks like a coffin," his father replies. And in a way it was both. But it was a coffin that opened. We call the first settlers the cavemen. It is not an insult. It is a title of honour. They were the ones who dug the first holes with their bare hands. They were the ones who ate algae paste so we could eat fruit. They were the ones who went mad in the silence so we could have a voice. Standing here, looking at this artifact of crude welding and primitive computers, we feel a vertigo of time. We see the line connecting the first fire on Earth to the fusion drive of the Pioneer. It is a single, unbroken thread of refusal. The refusal to sit still. The refusal to die. We realise that we are not the end of the story. We are just the middle. This park, this city, this entire terraformed world is just a base camp. The cavemen didn't come here to stop. They came here to give us a running start. And as we look at their battered little ship, we make a silent promise to the ghosts inside it. We will not waste the chance you gave us. We will keep going. If you take a crawler out to the edge of the Terminator, past the last outpost of black moss, you can stand on the ridge that overlooks the night side. Here, the red sun is finally hidden behind the planet's curve. The sky is black, and for the first time, you can truly see the stars. They are not the stars of Earth. The constellations are wrong. Orion is twisted. The Big Dipper is broken. The map we used for 10,000 years is useless here. To a traveller from the past, this sky would look like chaos, but to us, it looks like opportunity. When our ancestors looked up from the savannas of Africa, they felt a pull. A magnetic need to know what was over the next hill. That need drove them to cross oceans of water. It drove them to cross oceans of vacuum. And now, standing on an alien ridge, we feel it again. It is the invitation of the deep. We used to think of space as a barrier, a wall of distance meant to keep civilizations apart. But now we see it differently. Space is a canvas. It is vast, cold, and mostly dead. It is waiting for someone to pick up a brush. We realise now what we are. We are not just hairless apes with anxiety. We are a delivery mechanism. We are a seed pod. The universe has evolved a way to move life from one rock to another, against the odds of entropy. We are the virus of complexity. We infect dead worlds with dreams. We look at the stars above Proxima, and we don't see distant fires. We see destinations. We see Wolf 1061. We see Luton's star. We see Trappist 1. They are all waiting. They are all silent. And the silence is not a warning to stay away. It is a question. Is anyone coming? And standing there, in the freezing wind of the new world, we whisper the answer. We are coming. So, here we are, 4 light years from where we started. We came here looking for a backup drive for civilization. We came here running from the fear of extinction. But we found something else. We found that you cannot just transplant a world. You have to rebuild it stone by stone, breath by breath. We have conquered the distance. We have survived the red sun. We have turned a frozen hell into a garden of black moss and blue sunsets. But the most important thing we built was not the city, or the mirrors, or the ships. It was us. We are no longer the people who left Earth. We are harder. We are darker. We are slower to anger and quicker to build. We have learned that the universe does not owe us a living. We have to carve it out of the rock. And now, as we watch the Pioneer fade into the starfield, we understand the true nature of our species. We are not settlers. We are not made to sit still. Home is not a place. Home is the ship. Home is the journey. We will go to Wolf 1061, and then we will go to Sirius, and then we will go to the edge of the galaxy. We will change with every star we touch. We will become giants on low-gravity moons and dwarves on super-Earths. We will breathe methane and drink ammonia. We will forget what we looked like when we started, but we will never forget why we left. The universe is vast, cold, and dead. It is a dark room that has been empty for 13 billion years, but the door is open now, and we are bringing the light. Thank you for walking this road with me, from the launch pad of Earth to the twilight of Proxima. The story of humanity is just beginning. The cage is broken, the sky is endless. Sleep well, dream of the deep, and I will see you in the next star system.